Somewhere in Vermont right now, a family is sitting down for dinner. The TV is on, the dishwasher is running, and in the garage, a battery on the wall is quietly sending power back to the electricity grid, getting paid for it. They don't know it's happening. They don't need to. Their utility company is managing the whole thing remotely, and every household in their state is saving money because of it. That is a virtual power plant, and in 2026, it is no longer a niche experiment. It is becoming one of the most important tools the American grid has ever had. Let's start with the basic concept, because the name sounds more complicated than it is. A traditional power plant is a centralized building, a gas turbine, a coal facility, a nuclear reactor. That generates electricity in one place and ships it out through wires. A virtual power plant has no building. Instead, it is software that connects thousands of distributed energy resources: home batteries, solar panels, EV chargers, smart thermostats, water heaters, industrial loads, and coordinates them to behave like a single, controllable power source. When the grid needs power, the software tells the batteries to discharge. When the grid has surplus, it tells them to charge. The resources are scattered across neighborhoods, suburbs, and cities, but to the grid operator, they look and function like one unified power station. No turbine, no smokestack, just software talking to devices. The reason this is exploding right now comes down to one brutal reality: the grid cannot keep up with demand. Power demand is projected to grow faster than it has in decades, driven in large part by data centers and other large new loads. Much of the nation's existing grid infrastructure is aging and will need to be replaced, while traditional solutions now face high costs and supply chain constraints. Gas turbines are backlogged through at least 2028. Transmission lines take a decade to permit and build. Nuclear and geothermal are years, if not decades, away. VPPs can be deployed much quicker than traditional upgrades and can serve as enduring grid resources or as a bridge to long-term conventional infrastructure investments. That speed advantage is the reason utilities, regulators, and investors are pouring money into VPPs right now. The numbers back this up. The global VPP market was valued at $6.28 billion in 2025 and is expected to grow to approximately $45.67 billion by 2035, expanding at a compound annual growth rate of 22.61%. Inside the United States, the momentum is even sharper. As of last year, 34 states have programs that call on utilities to use smart thermostats, and water heaters, batteries, EV chargers, and energy management systems at businesses and factories to combat rising electricity rates. A dozen additional states are considering new or expanded VPP legislation in 2026, including Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, following similar bills in Illinois, Virginia, Maryland, and Colorado. This is no longer a coastal liberal policy story. It is a nationwide grid reliability story. The most compelling real-world proof of what VPPs can actually do comes from Vermont. Green Mountain Power operates a VPP of Tesla Powerwall batteries spread across residential homes. And in the summer of 2025, the program saved all of its customers $3 million in peak electricity costs. When electricity demand peaks, GMP networks the residential battery capacity, along with utility-scale batteries and car chargers, into a virtual power plant of about 50 megawatts. Customers who participate pay just $55 per month for a leased Powerwall. With no money down, no installation cost, and after 10 years the system is theirs for free. The utility gets dispatchable grid flexibility on demand. The customer gets backup power and a lower bill. It is one of the cleanest value exchanges in modern energy policy. Since 2019, the Powerwall systems in GMP's program have provided over 225,000 hours of backup power during more than 45,000 outage events. California is taking this to a completely different scale. California's demand-side grid support program enrolled over 750 megawatts of customer-sited storage. a 500 megawatt increase in just the first 10 months of 2025 alone. In one grid event, over 100,000 home batteries came together for a history-making 535 megawatt grid support moment. Tesla paid out $9.9 million to Powerwall owners through VPP programs in 2024, with individual homeowners earning hundreds of dollars per season simply by allowing their batteries to participate in grid events during peak hours. Texas is building its own version from the ground up. Base Power and El Paso Electric have announced a residential distributed energy storage pilot program, aiming to deploy up to 10 megawatts of residential battery systems as a virtual power plant before the summer peak of 2026, to address local capacity constraints. Meanwhile, Sunrun and Solrite Energy have launched a battery-only VPP program with 3,000 Texas customers already enrolled, targeting 10,000 customers and 600 megawatt-hours of capacity by end of 2026. RMI research shows that VPPs alone could scale to meet over 20% of total U.S. peak demand by 2030. That is not a marginal contribution. That is a fundamental transformation of how the American grid is managed, from centralized generation shipped outward to distributed generation and storage pulled inward when needed. Now here is where the battery market angle gets critical, because VPPs are not just a software story. They are a lithium battery demand story. Every household that joins a VPP program needs a battery. Every fleet vehicle enrolled needs bi-directional charging hardware. Every commercial building needs a behind-the-meter storage system. The residential segment is projected to be the fastest-growing portion of the VPP market through 2033, as homeowners connect rooftop solar and small-scale storage through VPP platforms. That demand is pulling battery manufacturers, particularly those making lithium iron phosphate cells, toward a market that is growing fast, recession-resistant, and entirely domestic. Unlike EV batteries, which depend on unpredictable consumer spending, VPP battery demand is driven by utility contracts, capacity market payments, and grid reliability requirements. It is structural, not cyclical. The direction of the next phase of the U.S. battery market is now becoming clear. The EV startup era is contracting. The utility-scale build-out is record-breaking but concentrated in a handful of large projects. The VPP residential and commercial segment is where the next million battery installations will happen. One household, one business, one school at a time. In 2026, VPPs are being discussed less as a shiny innovation and more as one of the fastest, lowest-risk tools for cushioning customers from rising system costs, reducing peak-driven energy purchases, and deferring or avoiding costly infrastructure spending. The grid of 2030 is not going to be built by one giant plant in one location. It is going to be assembled device by device in garages and basements and parking lots across every state in the country.